So I'm Kristin Morris. I'm here today with William Lam. We're interviewing William for the VMware Founders Collection at the Computer History Museum. So this interview will become part of that collection. William, thank you so much for taking the time to come talk to us today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's a very humbling experience, or it will be, hopefully.
So to start, tell me a little bit about your education and career journey leading up to VMware.
Well, bring back some memories here. From a formal education standpoint, I graduated at UC Santa Barbara with a computer science degree. But I would say that what kind of got me interested in VMware and exposure was VMware was sort of a little bit prior to that, and certainly during around my college years, specifically working within our ID department. I was fortunate to work with a lot of folks that provided support to our residential students. And so we provided networking and computer services, typical what you might see in an IT organization. And during around sophomore, junior year kind of time frame, one of my good friends, Chuan Duong, kind of exposed me to VMware technologies. He had found this solution and kind of said, hey, it can do some interesting things with, bringing together, multiple physical systems into one. And I thought that was quite interesting. And he really kind of started me down that path of getting exposed to VMware early on. I think at the time this was like VMware Server, and just started to learn a little bit about it. And I would say that kind of kickstarted my interest in learning about it.
What was it that attracted you to this solution or this concept?
I think early on, especially for some of the things that I got to do at my job, sort of first job within college was to just help, support the students, and a lot of that task around taking a look at the systems, cleaning out malware, spyware, viruses. We developed different types of applications that kind of help onboard the students and give them a good experience. And that got me down the path of learning about Linux at the time, setting up a web server, database. And a lot of that was really difficult to do on a physical system. You install an operating system, and if you made a mistake, and back in those days, which really wasn't that far long ago, if you made a mistake, you had to kind of reinstall the operating system. It was not very forgiving, especially at the time of the Linux distribution. There just wasn't that many, easy to use versions. And so what I came to use VMware technologies for was to be able to replicate these different configurations and really doing it on nights and weekends and just learning about it. While I had a computer science degree, I would say that the practicality and being able to get exposed to sort of IT early on, that got me really interested in this space rather than sort of what most thought I would have done, which is become a developer. I knew I was not good at writing code, but just the being able to help others and just kind of get that exposure early on, really gave me a good footing and saw the power early on of, what you can do with virtual machines at that state. And that I think ultimately got me more interested in, what else could you do and kind of pushing the boundaries of what the software can really do for you.
Mm-hmm. So out of school, then you went to work with VMware products in IT departments, right?
Yeah, so because of that exposure and coming out of college, I applied to a bunch of different places. Didn't get a lot of accepts, unfortunately, but I did get a job at a large biotech firm called Amgen. And they were pretty impressed that for somebody coming out of college to have just VMware experience was like kind of fascinating. And so I kind of joined their college hire program. And they were just going through a conversion of, they were still running ESX, 2.x, and we had a lot of physical servers. And so, that was certainly the times, and this was 2008, starting to do these physical to virtual conversions. So taking these physical servers and converting them into virtual machines. And we did that for almost a year straight. And so that got me really exposed to, VMware technology at scale using our, flagship ESX hypervisor. And this was managing multinational sites, across North America as well as across Europe. And so that really got me exposure to the technologies and really a passion for just automating. I was part of the Unix Linux administration team, and so we really provided the infrastructure for different divisions within the biotech organization, ones that would be responsible for testing the drugs, developing the drugs. And so a lot of interesting things had to go into sort of these regulated environments, and some of the tools that we got exposed to, and just being able to do things at scale. And so that really started my passion for scripting and automation, and how do you do these things consistently and be able to scale that out and kind of give that to others so that they can scale themselves out as well.
At what point did you start doing the VMware certifications?
I would say it was around that time as well. As I started to get more experience with the product, obviously the VMware Certified Professional was certainly a highly regarded certification, and still is today, and just got you more exposure to the products. And certainly as VMware was starting to broaden the portfolio, this was just as they're releasing their ESX and Virtual Center products, they started to kind of dabble into software development. This was pre-days before CI/CD even existed at that time, and so they had products like Lab Manager. And so the VCP certification certainly helped me keep my skill set up to date. And then over time, because of my exposure to the products and just kind of working in the community, I was fortunate to be asked to participate in some of the beta programs, not only for the software, but also on the certification process. And so I was able to take the certifications at a much earlier state to help, flesh the questions out, and just making sure that, the questions were testing, the appropriate knowledge, based on the goals of the certification.
So how did you end up actually coming to work for VMware then?
It's a great question. Gosh, it's been so long now. After working at Amgen for a couple of years, I was unfortunately impacted by at that time, what was happening sort of in the IT industry was sort of, outsourcing IT. And so as a college student, sort of that's like, oh, wow, really loved working the team there, but, it was a big unknown. And at the time, I met my girlfriend in college. She lived in the Bay Area, and I didn't know a lot about sort of tech in general. But just kind of knew Silicon Valley was where everybody was kind of going, and she was there. So I kind of eventually made my way up there. And so I ended up applying to a bunch of different places. I did not actually ended up joining a company that was necessarily working on VMware, but I knew that they had a large VMware deployment, which was Yahoo. And so I sort of switched careers slightly to do sort of advertisement platform support. And that was really an interesting experience altogether. But because I wasn't really working on what I was passionate about, which is really the VMware technologies, I ended up spending a lot of my nights and weekends still learning about the products and still deploying it. And what I found was that some of the experience I had, I was able to kind of share that back with the VMware community through our VMTN Communities forum. And so I spent a lot of time during those years to just really answer questions, helped with scripting and automation, because that was a big aspect of what I was using the VMware technologies for, just to help a lot of us. And so over those years, sort of just been an active participant in that community. And interestingly enough, one of the individuals, within that community kind of noticed some of the work that I was doing, and he actually happened to work at Salesforce.com, and he had reached out and asked if I was interested in helping build out a platform at Salesforce that basically is what we would call CI/CD together. Back in the day, there just wasn't a term for that, but it was sort of how do we help our internal Salesforce development team, take this complex software stack and deliver it, for testing purposes, for development purposes, for triaging, whatever it may be. And that was the goal of the team, was that, they were running vSphere for quite some time, and they wanted to be able to develop their own platform because there just wasn't something on the market. And so not necessarily going to VMware directly just yet, but I had a really great opportunity working at Salesforce and really getting exposed to infrastructure at scale. And again, just further getting exposed to, APIs, automation, doing things at high churn. Back in those days, deploying 10,000 VMs per day was significant. You just don't kind of hear those numbers. And when we kind of talk to some of the vendors, whether it's VMware, some of our hardware partners like Dell and HP, they're just kind of blown by. They're like, why are you deploying so many VMs per day? And it was like for every time a developer, writes a piece of software or code, it goes through a series of tests, right? And kind of I learned, early on that testing is really, really important, regressions and all these things, because Salesforce is a platform. And so if we find a defect with one piece of software or functionality, it affects every single Salesforce customer. So that really got ingrained in me during those years at Salesforce. And it was really the continuation of participating in the community. At that time, I started to get some invites to speak at, VMworld conferences, just some of the best practices that I've learned over the years and experiences. And really that eventually led me, getting an offer from VMware.
So what role did you have when you started? You started in 2011.
Yes.
Yes. So what was your role?
Yeah, because I was doing a lot of sort of what you might call evangelizing, for VMware technologies, sharing my learnings. It jived really well with the technical marketing organization, and it just happened that there was a role that was available that the VMware wanted to kind of focus their energy and effort around more awareness around some of our APIs. At that time, it was called the vCloud Suite APIs, and sort of how do we help our customers, understand the benefits, and really helping them understand, but also educating themselves so that how they can take advantage of the platform. And so that was the role that I took on when I first joined VMware.
Mm-hmm. So this was very different from. It was a very different role in that you're not.
That's right.
Delivering IT.
That's right. Yeah, and it was a big shift, and what I found and kind of came to a realization was that while I was able to help a lot of users within our community, especially with our shared experiences, and I think that's what really made VMware really special, is that community, was that to really make an impact, I felt that this might be a good opportunity to kind of be on the other side, and rather than using our software and kind of sharing the feedback, it might be interesting to be on the other side and kind of developing that software and really have a much bigger impact. And so spent a lot of nights thinking about it, and definitely was a dream job of mine to certainly work at VMware, and still is. And so yeah, I kind of made the leap from a customer to sort of joining VMware and kind of helping our customers not only understand the products but also evolve the products and hopefully make it better for our customers.
Mm-hmm. So what was it like having been a customer and just a fan, for lack of a better word? What was it like then to step onto the VMware campus as an employee?
It's almost like a blur now at this point. I mean, there were so many individuals, and a lot of them are still around actually, that I look up to. And so just being able to surround myself with just amazing talent across all these different domains, and just learning from them, and then being able to take a look at all the opportunities in front of us and a lot of the business challenges. And that's kind of what I enjoy doing, when I get to talk to our customers and kind of understand some of the challenges, right? And what made me really love the software in the beginning was that while the software was built for certain pieces of use cases and functionality, what our customers have been able to do is come up with new challenges, new ways of pushing the boundaries of our software. And because it's software, right, it's very malleable, and it's able to do things that even the original creators just couldn't have thought of. And it allowed me to really take the software and get creative with solving a lot of our customer challenges in very unique ways. And I think that has always made it very interesting to me, and sort of why I love going to work every day, because every day I'm learning a different way that a customer is using our software that we just never really thought about. And I think it's that longevity of the platform that we built, over the past 2 decades plus, right, that really makes it exciting to come to work every day.
What was the company culture like when you arrived?
I would say that for definitely on the innovation side, really solving hard and difficult problem was certainly one keystone of VMware. I would say the other piece of it is around just kind of building community. I remember a few years after joining, I had the opportunity to join, this was sort of the early days before the VMware Foundation was fully formed. and there was this opportunity called the Good Gigs program, and they just had a pilot program. And so one of my colleagues had told me about it. And he's like, hey, if you have the chance, you should definitely apply for it. And what I found was really insightful there was that we weren't only donating sort of financial aspects, to an organization, but we were also donating people and technology and our time specifically. And so I had the opportunity to go to Cambodia, and this was part of a team where we were helping a local school there. And, they're just trying to keep the lights on in terms of enabling their students. And it was a very humbling experience because it was like things that we take for granted as like electricity being on throughout the day. And so being able to help them update their lab equipment so that they can deliver, services and education to their students. But we had to do it in a way that kind of fit these unique constraints that typically we don't think about. And so I thought that was a really cool experience in terms of taking the people, the technology, and just sharing that experience with others, right? And you'll see organizations that will just donate, their financial, resources and maybe some of the software that they develop. But here it was really more than just that. It was really the people, and that was a really fantastic experience to kind of go through. And I feel like that's been something that we've been evolving to. And I think over the years, that and the other aspects of the culture eventually kind of, materialize into what we call the Epic 2 values.
I know with some companies, some technology companies, ones especially that work with the enterprise, I think there is this phenomenon of folks who use their product for a long time, then coming into the company fold because you actually know the product almost better sometimes than the people who developed it, marketed it, and brought it to market, that brought it to life. Because you've used it every day, you've used it in dynamic situations, like you said, you've used it in ways that the developers never intended or foresaw. So I'm just wondering if you feel like that perspective is valued when you come on board as a full-time VMware employee. Like, how does your perspective as a user inform what you do?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, after spending a couple of years doing the technical marketing role, because of just my general interest of just a bunch of different technologies, and I think part of that stems from just sort of wanting to learn about things. But even just some of my day-to-day role is just around automation. And I would say that, automation is not just for scale and consistency, but it really forces you to understand what you're automating and really understand the product, really understand the constraints, what it can and cannot do. And I think it's that level of insight that has helped me really help our customers really solve some of the more technical challenges that maybe the product wasn't designed for, or opening a new perspective on how we might evolve these products. And so really that customer lens was something that has just always been in the forefront as I think about the technology, right? Like, I love tech, but I love solving business challenges and real problems through tech and processes. And so over time, I'm able to share those insights with our product teams and engineering teams. And there was a team at that time, called Customer Zero. And the genesis of this program really was to bring in, customer insights, whether the individual, came from a customer like myself, or many other folks on the team came from our VMware field organization. And so they supported a lot of different customers and who are active users of the product that can really understand what our customers are trying to do with it, help them understand the different use cases, and bring all that together such that we can evolve the product roadmap and ultimately, shape, what we deliver and the functionality. And so through that experience, I was able to, participate in this team. And so I ended up switching roles from sort of technical marketing and more engineering focused team, where we were able to work closely with our product management team as well as our engineering teams and the different UX designers, and help them understand these customer insights and really help shape our roadmap so that we're able to deliver the functionality, the experiences that our customers really expect, and kind of bring this iterative closed loop cycle where we engage with our customers and then kind of working internally within our different teams. And that's definitely something that I certainly enjoy and something I still continue to do at VMware to this date, actually.
What are some of the projects you've worked on that you feel most proud of, or you felt were most impactful?
It's like asking your favorite child. I've been really fortunate to just work across many of our different offerings, from compute, storage, networking. It's really hard to pick a particular one, but if I had to, pick some areas I felt that had some interesting impact, it would be some of the what we call flings, which are sort of these, small ideas to help customers realize some value. It may not be something that may ever be products. Maybe it's something that we're thinking about to be products, and so it's a very popular program. And I've been lucky to kind of work with the program since its inception, roughly when I joined VMware. And a couple of interesting things that came out of that program, and a lot of this came from feedback from working with our customers and just understanding some of the challenges, is a utility called the Cross vCenter vMotion utility. And it really builds on what VMware had already pioneered, which is the mobility of these VMs. And the interesting constraint there was that we allowed users kind of move these VMs, from one infrastructure to another infrastructure. But there was actually artificial constraint that was built into the user interface that kind of forced you down a particular experience. And when I looked at the technology that was available, this was roughly vSphere 6.0, I realized that the developers who wrote the code actually made it really, really flexible. But maybe as part of delivering the capability, we decided to solve for a very specific use case, so that forced us to have a particular user experience that then created this artificial constraint. And so when I looked at this, I was like, oh, we can actually unlock the capabilities, really enable true workload mobility, really to where the vision of VMware was going at that time. And so we created this little Fling utility that just allowed you to move workloads across multiple infrastructures very easily through a UI interface as well as an API endpoint. So a really simple utility. It used the existing products as is. It just kind of exposes functionality so that people were aware of it. And sort of long story short, it had a huge impact on our customers, because at that time, a lot of customers were, running older systems of hardware, and it was really difficult to manage and upgrade. And this utility allowed them to quickly get to newer versions of our software by moving these workloads and just simply decommissioning the hardware. And over 5 years' time, this went from idea to inception of the utility to eventually getting it productized into our flagship vSphere product. So that was a really great experience, because I got to talk to a lot of different customers and really understand, how this utility has helped them. And it's still being used even to this date, even though we're many, many versions ahead within our software. But it kind of goes to show that, innovation isn't just necessarily brand new engineering ideas, but it's also taking existing products and experiences and just making it easier or simpler to consume. And I feel like that's a big part of what we've been able to do at VMware.
I'm trying to frame a question around your experience with cloud and how that is changing the landscape of what this enterprise does and what VMware does. What do you see as the way that cloud is transforming what VMware's customers are doing?
I think it's provided our customers and our users sort of a new type of an environment to run their workloads, a different type of an experience. When you look at traditional environments that run in an on-prem data center, there's just so much infrastructure that needs to be managed that may or may not be the organization's sort of overall skill set, right? For example, if you're in a healthcare industry, you're probably not worried about sort of data center cooling power. You're really worried about, can I deliver the best healthcare capabilities, experiences to my end users? And so what cloud really enabled was sort of a brand new operating model that not only can I get infrastructure as a service, right? But I can also get all these other types of services, data services, networking services, and really stop thinking about, configuring IT to consuming services to then enable a particular outcome. And so from a VMware point of view, what we saw was sort of, kind of what VMware has been good at for the past 2 decades is sort of taking complex systems, abstracting away those capabilities and exposing that in a consumable manner to the infrastructure team so that we can actually deliver business outcomes. And so, with the partnership with AWS initially, we had this VMware Cloud AWS solution where we delivered the entire VMware Cloud stack. That really revolutionized a lot of how our customers consume IT. Some of the customers, were able to decide that, hey, I don't want to run a data center. I want to run this completely in the cloud as a managed service. And so some of our customers have been able to leapfrog their competition and really focus on business value and get out of the on-prem data centers completely. And so that was definitely changed the game for a lot of our customers to really think about IT as being this valuable resources versus just purely as a cost center, and thinking about new ways of leveraging sort of this technology to really deliver, impactful business outcomes. So I think that's sort of the early days of sort of what we saw with the public cloud, and then we kind of continue to execute against that vision as we kind of work with all these different hyperscalers who offer different sets of capabilities, functionality, and ultimately giving our customers choice of where they want to run their workloads.
What you just said about choice, it seems to me such a through line for VMware. Such an important part of their founding ethos is this idea of working with whatever system, whatever infrastructure, whatever setup their customer has to make the VMware product work with it. Can you speak a little bit about that attitude, if you will?
Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily like it's an attitude per se, but I would just say sort of it's the flexibility of the platform, and we're just able to sort of adapt based on not just market trends, but sort of where our customers need to be at. In the early days, we allow customers to easily realize value by taking lots of servers, consolidating that, right? And so customers saw a massive reduction of power, cooling, costs, and that allowed them to now run more efficiently. And so we were already sort of thinking about, being a green organization in the early days, certainly. And then as we saw the evolution of hardware transform, becoming more generic in nature, we're now able to take, storage systems, networking systems, and kind of do what VMware does best, which is virtualizing away those complexity and providing that as an abstraction and basically fundamental building blocks, right? And with the cloud, we're able to, now harness this, at scale. And now you have cloud-based resources where you will take, again, these same fundamental building blocks, but now you have an operational and operational benefits and put these things together at scale, and then doing that, on demand based on our customers. And so now they're able to get the benefits of cloud and only sort of pay for what they use for. And I would say that we kind of continue down that line, especially with the evolution of the edge, where now we're seeing data generate at these edge locations. These form factors are much different than what you would find typically in a customer data center or in the public cloud. But again, to us, it's sort of our ethos of taking these systems and how do we abstract away that complexity so that you can manage this at scale, and really making it easy for enterprise IT to enable them to run the types of workloads that they need, whether it's traditional database workloads, traditional web workloads. Obviously, there's a whole lot of interest these days on AI, ML workloads, and we certainly see a lot of things happening at the edge, right? And so that's sort of our, fundamental operating model, right, is to just take away these complexities, abstract it in a way, and make it easy to manage for our end users.
Mm-hmm. Can you speak a little bit about the relationship between VMware and its user community and its fans?
Yeah, I would say, that's sort of how I got exposed to VMware early on, was not just the technology, but, when I got stuck in the early days, I went to go look for help, and it was really great to find that there was this really rich VMware community. And it's really humbling to see a lot of the folks who helped me get where I'm at they're still around, they're still contributing. And I think that's one really special thing about our community, right? That it is so knit close and it's very sharing and accommodating. And so a lot of people who've been using the product, whether it's 20 years or who just get started, they're quickly able to kind of find these folks and really just share in all these different communities. Obviously, in 2023, we have a lot more options of sharing, obviously. So the forums are still quite popular. But I'm on social media, and so you see a lot of people kind of building that out. And then on top of that, we also have the VMware user group, and that's been really helpful to just help local communities kind of build out their sort of VMware expertise, share their learnings. And what's really cool is that over time, as you do these speaking engagements, you get invited to do larger talks at VMworld. In fact, a great colleague of mine, he started doing these VMugs for his local community. Many years later, not only was he a great colleague and still is working with me, but he got to be up on stage with the CEO at that time, which was Pat Gelsinger. And so, his claim was always like, hey, being part of the community, sharing in these smaller forums, you never know, because you might be up on stage with your CEO.
So who are some of the people who have been most impactful in guiding, shaping, supporting your career at VMware?
I would say that there's probably one individual that definitely stands out, and I'm sure that if you ask other VMware employees, they would probably say the same thing. And he's Duncan Epping. In fact, he was the individual that got me to join VMware. He found the opportunity, and he certainly helped bring in a lot of other experts within our domain into VMware, working in the technical marketing team. And it wasn't just sort of that initial contact. I've known Duncan for a number of years, but it was sort of even after the fact. He ended up seeing a lot of potential in terms of what I was doing in automation, and it ended up helping me sort of get my next role, which is sort of this customer zero team. And over the years, we had an opportunity to just sort of do an internal startup at that time, and he had also brought me over. So over my tenure at VMware, not only has he been a great colleague, friend, but certainly a mentor, just to kind of help me navigate just all the different things and exposing me to different opportunities within VMware, and certainly shaped the things that I'm doing today. And yeah.
Anyone else you want to mention?
I would say probably maybe not at VMware necessarily, but certainly a big part of sort of how I even got exposed to VMware, which was a college friend of mine's, Chuang Zhuang. He sort of was the first person to really made me aware of VMware technology in general. And I said that probably if it wasn't for him, there's probably a good chance that I might not be here actually, because certainly at that time hearing about VMware in college pre 2008 it's probably unheard of. And so I would say that probably credit to him a lot in terms of kind of getting me exposed to the technology going down this path.
I have one more question on my list. Before I ask that, do you have anything that you'd like to share about your time at VMware that we haven't covered yet?
No, I don't. I think we kind of hit on all the different points.
All the highlights.
Yeah.
So my last question, which I ask everybody, is what do you think is the lasting impact of VMware's technology?
Ooh, tough one at the end. I would say that it would, our technology really sort of, its impact has been able to get people to kind of challenge the status quo of how you just manage, enterprise IT. And I think we really bring in this simplicity into this sort of chaotic and complex world of all these different systems, different user base and personas, and how do you bring all that together in a cohesive manner so that you can really deliver on customer and business outcomes. And I think it just kind of changes the way IT works in general. And I think we certainly were pioneers of early compute virtualization, but we didn't kind of stop there, kind of took a look at the rest of the landscape and said, what else is required to deliver and run applications and services? And that's networking, that's storage, that's management of all this infrastructure. And I think over the years, and that's what we've really done, is that it's really left the impact of that anything that our customers can, we really deliver the impossible, for our customers in terms of being able to run IT services at scale.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.